All right, I'm gonna react to Hutch and Smajj's conversation and give my thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to. So my position is that AI is a mixed bag, but there's a lot of really exciting applications, and it is going to, in many ways, make people's lives better, and that people shouldn't be as resistant to this change as they are, but a healthy amount of skepticism is warranted. That's basically my position.
Yeah, and that's a position I agree with. It's it's good. It can be good and bad. There are a lot of exciting applications, but it's important to think about potential and actual negative outcomes and limitations of the technology and environmental impact and avoiding getting overly dependent on it. And we need to discuss what does it mean to become overly dependent on the technology. We are already extremely dependent on the modern infrastructure of the societies we live in, and most of us wouldn't survive without it. So we are super dependent on our technology. Um, but in general, of course, we need to think about ups and downs, benefits and non-benefits, drawbacks. Yeah,
Fine. My position is you are telling me that there may one day be a Michelin star restaurant somewhere, let's say. I'm using this as a purely hypothetical, and you're telling me, hey, come on, join in. I've gone to the Michelin star restaurant, I've sat down, you've served me some okay food, but you have decided to stand on the table, pull down your pants and squat over it and say, hang on, it will get better. The food is still there, the food is still nice, but there are flecks of shit going all over the food. And you're saying it might get better eventually. It's already shit now.
yeah. So I don't think we need to analyze that analogy that much. He's basically just saying it's shit in so many words.
I'm thinking about banning analogies from entirely from the stream at this point.
Fine.
We're just banning analogies. Yeah. Why don't you give me some real world language here?
Fine. So we already have an example of it not working in the environments that you've mentioned. So for example, in the therapy environment. So you said it could eventually be good for a young man to, if he's an incel, a shut-in, for example, as a preventative measure, to eventually one day talk to AI. I guess your point overall was alongside therapy as well at the same time, which fine, whatever. But
that's pretty crucial though. That's pretty crucial though. Yeah, the tools wouldn't be a substitute for therapy. It would be a complementary technology.
I think it's quite telling that Smajj wanted to brush that off as like whatever, that it would be used alongside the therapy and not as a substitute, because that is one of the most common misunderstandings. And like that was something he was not able to understand when Hutch was talking about this earlier, and I corrected him, and he kind of lost his mind because I called him a liar because he was saying that Hutch said that AI should replace therapy, and I said that's not what he said at all. Go back and listen to it. And when I got Hutch to eventually clarify that it was indeed not what he was saying, he lost his mind even more. So I think it's quite telling that it seems like he's not really taken into his brain the fact that this is about supplementing AI. I don't think that really registers deeply that this is just another tool in the toolbox. It's not supposed to replace anything. Yeah.
Sure. But when you are supplementing real world conversations, the best way that
Just because I'm anticipating the criticism here, yes, he does now acknowledge the word supplement, but what I'm saying is even though he says that because Hutch just corrected him or pointed out that that is really significant, I don't think he's thinking about it really that way. And I think we will have some evidence of that later.
that speaking to other therapists, again, you've said this conversation, I've gone and spoken to other therapists. You have mods that are in this field as well that I've spoken to about it. And the worst thing you can do for someone who has a lack of human communication, even if they're in therapy and everything like that, is supplement it with fake human communication in terms of AI and talking to AI. Because look at it this way.
Okay, so that's the claim. The worst thing you could do for someone who has a lack of human communication, even if they're in therapy, is to supplement it with fake human communication, such as AI, or in terms of AI, as he said. Okay, so that's a claim. Let's hear the justification for this claim.
An incel who's angry at the world, he's angry at everything. He talks to ChatGPT, for example. Let's say we're on ChatGPT, I don't know, 7 at this point. ChatGPT 7 goes, talk to a woman like this, or say this to a woman. What happens when that fails? When he goes, he reads what ChatGPT tells him. He speaks to a woman the way ChatGPT has told him, and he just gets brutally shut down. The woman doesn't owe him anything. The woman just brutally shuts him down and tells him to fuck off. What do you think that's going to do to that young man? Even if he's in therapy, even if he has the therapist at his side and he's getting coping mechanisms, do you think that will hinder him in therapy overall, or do you think it will be successful? Because from my perspective, the best thing to do for someone who is lacking in human communication, which I've been, again, we've had this discussion before. I used to be a right-wing shut-in incel. I used to hate the world. The best thing for me was actually getting out in the world and actually talking to people, not talking to an AI robot. So I just wanted to put that to you, that supplementing non-human communication shouldn't be done with, supplementing a lack of basic human communication should not be supplemented with AI.
Well,
so I've also been a shut-in, I guess. I wouldn't describe myself as an incel, but definitely someone who sat inside a lot and was online a lot. And I've also gone to therapy and had to work on myself in this area, so I think I'm in somewhat of the same boat there. But I think what we heard here was not a justification at all for why the worst thing you can do for someone who has a lack of human communication is help them with AI. We just heard a thought experiment, an example of someone using AI and it goes wrong. The AI gives them a terrible suggestion, bad tips, basically. It's a bad AI. It's bad at therapy. It's bad at giving advice. And it goes wrong. I would just say, well, what about if it went well? What if the results were good? And also, what if instead of getting that terrible advice from an AI, you got it from a friend, or you got it from a therapist, and it was a bad therapist, or it was a friend who didn't know what they were talking about, or you read it in a dating book or somewhere else. I mean, of course, getting bad advice is going to be bad. Whether it comes from AI or somewhere else is kind of irrelevant in this example. Like this example that he brought up is bad because the results were bad. Because he got shut down brutally and told to fuck off. And that's of course very possible, especially with today's models, or even with like GPT-7, like he talked about. It's of course very possible that these models will make mistakes and be bad. But I think the case that Hutch is making and that I would make is that it is also possible for them to be good. And I also think we should note here that Smajj does seem to focus here on the outcome, right? The fact that the advice was bad is what is in focus here. The person got shut down. They used the advice from AI and now they got shut down. So it seems like the result is what matters. And the only reason I bring this up is because a lot of people that I've discussed this with in Discord have made the case that, oh, in therapy, the outcome isn't what matters. The result isn't the important thing. It's not what you should focus on. It's the process that's important. But I would just say that the process only matters insofar as it leads to a good result. And a good result would be something like alleviating the symptoms of mental health issues that made you seek out therapy in the first place, or at least improving your mental well-being to some capacity by going to therapy. Like that has to be a result of your therapy sessions. Otherwise, that process isn't leading you anywhere. And I'm not saying that the process can be separated from the result. I think, of course, the process is what leads to that outcome. But I'm just saying, if you could get that outcome, hypothetically speaking, if you could get a good outcome, for example, by talking to an AI, losing the process of therapy doesn't matter if we already stipulate that the outcome is going to be good with an AI. All right, the process matters insofar as it leads to a good result. Okay.
Well, so my mind goes to like exposure therapy. Like there are therapists that will sit down with a client and they will explore trauma and pain and sometimes do role playing to help a client prepare for a real world setting where they can maybe navigate those kinds of conversations or experiences without becoming emotionally overwhelmed. There's the point where they have a panic attack or they freak out or they shut down or this or that kind of thing. Why could we not imagine a language model that could serve the same exact purpose, which is just basically like a practice run in a controlled, judgment-free, safe setting?
Because you're talking about practicing human interaction with a non-human person. That isn't good for anyone in that situation.
So Hutch is going to say exactly this now, but yeah, that's just a statement. That's just saying, right? Why can't we imagine that a language model could serve this purpose? And Smajj is just saying, because you're practicing human interaction with a non-human entity, and that's not good for anyone. Right, but that's precisely the claim you have to back up. You can't just state that as a matter of obvious fact. If you can practice human interaction with an AI and it works, and we stipulate that it works, why is that not good? Right? You can of course argue the point that it can never ever work. It can't work. It just cannot work. In principle, it cannot work. Okay, but then you have to argue that case. You can't just say that.
A non-human person. That isn't good for anyone in that situation.
You're just but you're just making these claims, but what are they based on?
So
is it just vibes?
I clarify.
So he asks, what are they based on, and is it just vibes? And I think we will get a very telling answer here.
At the start, no, I clarified at the start that I'd spoken to obviously other people. You've got people on the mod team who work in therapeutic settings and everything like that. There's studies out there.
So he's talked to people in the community who, to be fair, work in therapeutic settings, but that I think we can very safely summarize as vibes. It's the vibes he's getting from the people he's talking to.
That show that human communication on the mod team who work in therapeutic settings and everything like that. There's studies out there that show that human communication is best for people who have a lack of human communication.
Yeah, there's study, yeah, of course, but that doesn't back up the claim that practicing human interaction with a non-human entity isn't good for anyone. That's just showing that human communication is best for humans who lack human communication. That doesn't mean non-human practicing must be bad, right? That doesn't logically follow at all.
You've just said it yourself that exposure therapy is there, and obviously that works. Otherwise, it wouldn't keep happening.
Yeah, no one's saying that it wouldn't work. There's no conflict between using an AI and also doing exposure therapy with a real therapist. Again, supplement, and this goes back to what I said earlier, that Smajj isn't really taking in the fact that Hutch isn't talking about replacing therapy. He's talking about supplementing therapy. He's talking about the fact that a lot of people can't afford to go to therapy, and a lot of people don't have a lot of good friends. A lot of people struggle socially, right? To even have a friend. That is a huge problem. Loneliness is a huge problem, and how are we going to solve it? I'm not saying we should solve it like AI is going to solve all of that, but if AI can be a tool to help alleviate some of that, why shouldn't we explore it? Why shouldn't we be excited about the possibilities here? Why should we just throw it in the trash and say, no, can't possibly work? So again, Smajj isn't really taking in the fact that Hutch isn't talking about replacing human interaction. Because otherwise, why would he be making these points about how exposure therapy works? Yeah, no one says it doesn't work. You should do exposure therapy. You should have human connection. You should have human communication.
You're looking to basically stop doing something that's working because AI might be able to do it better. You're telling
No, exactly. See, this is definite proof, I would say, that he's not really engaging with what Hutch is actually saying. So Hutch is not saying to stop doing something we know works because AI might one day do it better. He's saying AI might be able to help in some way, either now or in the future, uh, and we should use that tool if it is available.
essentially the arguments you're making is it might be good in the future. My argument is we know it's shit now. So why do we have to look to the future that it might be better when why can't we just improve what we already have with humans? Right? Why do we have to think AI might be better?
I would just say like therapy is expensive, it's hard, not everyone can afford it, etc.
If we imagine a future where these language models continue to improve and they conduct studies and they showed you, well, actually, we discovered that, let's say, for example, a therapist does exposure therapy with a client in a setting, in a session, and then as homework, the client go home and on their own time do continuous practice sessions, but this time with an AI model around a specific kind of like emotional work that they're doing about a specific trauma or a fear or some kind of stress response that they experience or whatever. And if the studies in the future indicate that this is beneficial and it's a complementary technology that is helping to treat these patients, would you be open to that?
Sure, absolutely. But again, you're talking about, I get that you're banning analogies, but you're talking about what if I...
Okay, so he is fine with that. He's saying if in the future it does work, if we can show that it does work, he's fine with it. Great. Oops.
I'm talking about the here and now. So
I never suggested
what
that.
If AI is suddenly...
But I never suggested
that AI is suddenly great.
But I never suggested that we start doing AI complementary therapy now.
No, of course not. I'm not saying you did.
So then what is this?
I'm saying you're saying what if it becomes good enough? I'm telling you, why do I have to look at what if when I already know it's shit and how LLMs...
That doesn't make any sense, does it? Like, this guy would be terrible at investing money, right? Because unless something already is perfect, there's no point in being excited about the potential applications in the future. Right? There's no point in thinking about how the models might keep improving, because they are improving. There's strong evidence that they are improving. And by the way, there's a lot of studies that show that the current models have potential applications. Like they show promise. It's already proven to be useful in some settings.
Work. LLMs don't suddenly develop human consciousness and understand human nature or anything like that. It's
why, but that now why would that be necessary? Consciousness? Why would that be necessary? We have studies that show that it already can work. So, and it certainly doesn't have consciousness.
All based on human knowledge. Let's say tomorrow, right, every single human on the planet, okay, you don't like analogies, but if you're using a hypothetical, I'm going to use one. But let's say tomorrow every single human on the planet suddenly decided to be an incel. That AI is going to develop into an incel. That's going to be human knowledge.
What? Okay. So what? This is a crazy hypothetical that's never going to happen. But okay, I can engage with hypotheticals. If the whole world was full of incels, yes, the LLM would be an incel, but in this scenario, so would every other therapist you're talking to, right? Because we're all incels. So what? So yeah, if the world is fucked, AI wouldn't save us. What?
AIs work off accumulative knowledge from what other humans have put online. So if the majority of online communication is that fuck women, here's what you should do, blah, 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 and he goes home and talks to the AI, that's obviously what the AI is going to say back to him. Or we can even go...
Yeah, so basically if you train your LLM on 4chan, or if you just use Grok, which might be a good example currently, instead of some better model that is more trained to be a good therapist, then you're going to get shit results. Yeah, okay, fine.
Of your example of if he starts going home and starts talking to the, the AI supplementary, homework, what happens when that then, again, like I said at the start, doesn't work? Do you think that's going to harm the relationship that he has with his therapist because his therapist recommended it to him and it didn't work?
No, but this is all
going to...
Yeah, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and if it doesn't work, it's bad. Like, okay, great argument. What if it does work? Is it impossible that it can work? No, and he's already admitted that it would be good if it does work.
No, but this is all theoretical. Like, I've always framed this possible application as being potentially exciting, with the not the assumption, but with the understanding that I would only have that opinion if they could demonstrate that there was an actual efficacy to it. So in the future, if they can demonstrate, like, actually we have found that this can help our clients in this kind of way. But the pushback that I was getting from people like you, I don't know if you're pushing it now, was you guys were saying it was bad in principle. Just like, even if that eventuality, even if that possibility manifests into a reality, you would be opposed to it because just in principle, you're saying it should always be the human therapist and the human client in that setting. But my whole thing was that
preferable option.
That is something that I don't think, and I don't think that AI should totally replace therapists. That's never been my position. I was just theorizing a potential application for it. And the pushback that I was getting was just like, no, that's bad in principle. And I was saying, why? And then I brought up an example.
Exactly. This is the problem. It's the principle. It's the dogmatism. It's bad no matter what. And when Mira comes into the conversation, she will demonstrate that very clearly. How like principled the stance is. It really has nothing to do with consequences at that point. It's just, as I said in our conversation, it's just AI bad. Because if you can't back up why the AI is bad, like in a thought experiment where you just stipulate that, well, imagine in the future if it gets good and we can do this therapy stuff and it has proven results, why in that case should we still not use it? That's what Hutch is asking, because that's the kind of attitude he was getting from his chat.
Of a guy that I know who's in his 60s, really old school, kind of stoic, don't talk about your feelings kind of guy, has a hard time processing emotions, and he was going through grief, and he had a conversation with, if you want to call it that, with ChatGPT one night where they were ChatGPT was enabling him to explore his grief in a safe setting, and he benefited from that. And you guys were saying that was dystopian. And I was sure. Like, why is that dystopian? Wait, what are we talking about? We're talking about...
So Hutch is here talking about a real example from his, an anecdotal real example from his life, where there's this 60-year-old type of guy who finds it really hard to talk with other people about his feelings. That's not the kind of thing he really does. He has used ChatGPT because it's easier to talk to ChatGPT than another human, because it's not going to judge you. You know it's safe. You know you're not going to be judged, basically, right? And he's saying that worked. He ended up going to therapy or something because of this. But his chat was saying this is still just dystopian somehow. Of course, you can say like, oh, but he could just talk to a friend. But no, this guy's 60 years old and he hasn't been talking to his friends about this kind of stuff for 60 years or whatever, for 40 years, being an adult. You think he's just suddenly going to start doing it at 61 because why? The reason he was able to talk to ChatGPT is because feels so much safer than talking to another human. And you can get that feedback, maybe, that you need from ChatGPT. Again, stipulating that it works. And in this case, in Hutch's example, it did work. Why would that be dystopian?
Relief from pain, relief from symptoms.
can I give you a counter example? So you've given me an example of it doing well, and
Okay, we can hear a counterexample, but that doesn't really engage with Hutch's example.
vice versa. A counter example would be, there was an example where I think it was a therapeutic company. I'm not sure on the particulars. I had an AI chatbot. A guy was addicted to meth, I think, or he's in recovery for a meth addiction or a drug addiction. He went to the AI chatbot and he started talking about he was thinking of relapsing, and and he just wanted some guidance from the AI chatbot. The AI chatbot came back to him and said, it's okay to have a little bit of meth to get through the day. It's okay if you need that to function and get through the day. You can take some meth. This was documented and shown.
There's worse examples. There's worse examples. There's an example of like AI models, validating unaliving.
Right. So here Smajj brings up a bad example of AI doing bad, which Hutch first of all completely acknowledges and even builds upon, and says there are worse examples of people killing themselves based on what the AI said. So obviously there's no contradiction between the position that Hutch has and that I would agree with his position. There's no contradiction between that position and acknowledging that AI currently has major limitations and needs to be improved before it can be safely applied for these therapy settings.
Instincts. Like there have been people that have unalived themselves, and then you go to the ChatGPT history, and it looks and the ChatGPT was like, or not ChatGPT, but one of these models that were like basically saying like, yeah, I understand. That's a logical solution to your problem. That's obviously bad.
Cool.
Yeah,
but it still exists. You showed us that yesterday with your example of how I think it's been like 2 years since that meth example that I gave, or it might have been like a year. And obviously the unaliving stuff, that's been a couple. We constantly get told that ChatGPT, what was it? ChatGPT 5, they did this whole presentation. Of course, they're going to do it because they have to sell the product, but they're saying it's the smartest one yet. It can actually think like a human, and it's what was it? Degree level. That's what they said. It was like degree or PhD level. So degree level was ChatGPT 4, PhD level is ChatGPT 5. You showed yesterday that it still can't even figure out if Charlie Kirk is alive or not.
Well, I don't know what was happening in that moment.
So one of the things I would rely the least on ChatGPT for is fairly recent news, because it only has information in its weight up to its training data. So that stuff is going to be extra hard. But I will say and acknowledge that these hallucinations or confabulations, which I think is a better word for it, it seems to be an inherent part of the architecture of these models. I don't think it will ever go away with ChatGPT 10, given that the architecture is still the same, which it will be the GPT architecture supposedly if it's called GPT still. Yeah, so I completely agree with that. You can probably keep improving the training data, cleaning the training data, having more guardrails, having bigger models might also improve this. Who knows? But I don't think this problem is ever going to go 100% away. That it makes up stuff, and yeah, but it's statistically or on these benchmarks, it keeps improving. It keeps getting better. So it might hit a plateau. I think it will hit a plateau, I guess is what I'm saying. But that doesn't mean the technology is useless. The fact that it has limitations doesn't make it useless. And that's really the argument, is really about that principle.
But the reason why I shared that, and the reason why that's like the only time I've ever shared something like that, is like that was the most egregious example. So like Chad, if you don't know what we're talking about, I asked ChatGPT a question about like estimating Charlie Kirk's net worth, and ChatGPT was like, I can't do that because Charlie Kirk is not dead. And I was like, no, he's definitely dead. And it came back and I was like, nope, we looked and we can't find that he's dead. So like that was the most egregious error that I've seen ChatGPT make. But for the most part, like it's been quite useful for me. Like especially troubleshooting computer stuff. Like I feel like the position that you guys take is like, AI is basically like universally bad and we should just not do it. We should just reject it. We should just not use it. Like, do you use AI at all in your life? Are you open to?
So now we're kind of moving past the therapy thing a little bit and talking about more general use cases like troubleshooting PCs and using it for work and stuff like this.
That or no?
So I was actually about to say that you're saying it helps with computer stuff. We spoke privately before and everything like that. Without doxing myself, I guess my day job could be boiled down to I'm a web developer. I guess that could be the best way to say how I do my job.
Okay.
While some people would think that AI is helpful in that setting, what we have found, and again, this is a personal anecdote, so I appreciate that some people in chat might, cry foul or whatever. What I find is that ChatGPT and other AI models like Cursor or even Google's new one that they've put into their own development platform, not Gemini, they have one for coding specifically now. What we found is it doesn't do the best thing or necessarily the thing you've asked. It does what it thinks is the middle ground. It goes for the middle ground because, again, that's how LLMs work. It takes everything from everywhere. And this is how LLMs will always work. It takes everything from everywhere and gives you the answer. It doesn't give you the best answer because that's not what AI is designed to do.
But you're talking about.
So I'm also I wouldn't describe it as a web developer. I'm a code. I write code. I'm a developer. I work more in the back end. I'm technically a machine learning engineer, which explains why I'm excited about AI. I understand the technology. I understand, the architecture and everything, and I think it's really cool. But anyway, so I recently started using AI agents in my work, and I felt like a dummy for not doing it earlier because it is incredible. And as I write here in my comment, he's not going to be a web developer for long if he's going to refuse to use AI tools. There is no way in hell in 5 to 10 years that companies are hiring anyone who's writing code without using AI and just sitting there and writing all their code themselves. You might get a job as some higher up position where you're not really writing code anymore and you're more of an architect and you're more of making higher level decisions, sure. But if you're sitting there, if you're sitting at your desk and your colleague is sitting at the desk next to you and he's using AI tools and doing maybe literally 10 times as much as you're doing in a day because he's using AI tools and just reviewing the code and testing it and making like higher level architecture decisions and letting the AI do the rest. Why would anyone hire you if you refuse to use AI? It is really good. And I think anyone who's refusing to test these tools at this point honestly can't talk with any authority on how well it works. If all you're doing is pasting some stuff into ChatGPT sometimes and asking it and looking at its response, by the way, even that works really good if you give it the correct context and you know which questions to ask. But if that's all you're testing, yeah, I wouldn't. You're not a trustworthy source on how well this works. It can do incredible things. Try GitHub Copilots. Like, just try agents. You have to try it. If you don't try it, you don't know what you're talking about. You just don't.
But you're talking about the current limitations. But I'm asking you, like, can you imagine like any value to these models?
Even in current implementations, these models are already super useful for coding. They just are. That is just a fact. That is just an objective fact.
I see myself as a realist, and at the moment, I don't see any value in them at the moment.
How could you?
That is an insane take. I'm sorry. That is just insane to say. It is actually just dogmatic. Because I use the word dogmatic because it's such an irrational claim.
So how could I?
You really can't see any value. They gave 2 engineers of DeepMind last year in 2024 a Nobel Prize because they used AI systems to come up with a model that can image protein spikes.
Now, to be fair, I think Hutch is wrong about it. Let me just do some research first. Okay, so I see what Hutch got wrong. The Nobel Prize was awarded to two. It was kind of cut in two, so to speak. One was to do with protein spikes, but the one with Google DeepMind was protein folding, and that's AlphaFold, and that's the AI thing. And that actually predicts the 3D structure of proteins based on the amino acid sequence. That's the big thing. And this is just something I've heard. Maybe I should research it before I say it. Yeah, so I basically asked ChatGPT, and I think it's probably correct about this because I've heard it before. Before AlphaFold, finding the 3D structure of just one protein plus a little bit of like work around that was enough for a PhD. So folding one protein was enough for a PhD. They've solved thousands and millions, I think, of proteins with this AI technology. But to be fair, this is not generative AI. This is a different type of AI, so it's not really what we're talking about here.
Which allows them to speed up their own medical research by significant degrees. Obviously, that's like a really positive
Sure.
outcome of AI, right?
Sure, but so I would ask you at this point, what we've obviously spoken about the human side of it, and I've just spoken from personal anecdote side of it of what it does for me as a technology. Obviously, there are some benefits to it, but that's not an LLM that you've just described. That's an automation process, which AI is great at.
It's not an automation. I don't know what he's talking about here. What does this have to do with automation process? It's not an automation process. It's predicting the 3D structure. It's outputting the 3D structure of a protein based on its amino acid. I mean, amino acid sequence. I mean, I guess AI is automating the work of an entire PhD. If that's how you want to put it, then fine. But okay, then all of AI is an automation process, right? Summarizing meeting notes into a short summary, that's automation of that task. But what? It's not an automation process. It's not. I don't know what he's talking about here. I don't know. I genuinely don't know what he's talking about here.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. If you give AI exactly what you want it to do and how to do it, it is great at automating things.
That's nothing to do with AlphaFold. What AlphaFold is, as far as I understand, what they did was they were able to simulate in a computer program how proteins fold. I don't know much about this, but they were able to create a program where the AI could test itself and learn from its mistakes and try again and again and again and try and fail and update its weights and try again and try again. Just like they did, that's why it's called AlphaFold, because it's the same technology that's behind AlphaZero, the chess AI, and AlphaGo. It's a thing where it's reinforcement learning, so the AI is able to try again and again and again, and eventually it learns somehow internally in its weights, and we don't know what kind of rules it's really learning, but it learns to predict correctly. So they're precisely not doing that. They're precisely not telling the AI exactly what to do. The AI is figuring out what to do. And that's what's so incredible. These deep learning systems are pattern recognition machines. They're extracting patterns from data. They're kind of squeezing the data in a way and juicing the patterns out of it. And sometimes you find patterns that you don't want, right? And that's what leads, in a very simplified sense, that's kind of what leads to hallucinations and the results you don't want. It's that noise in the data, or it's a signal in the data that you don't want in there. Like it's bad information. You don't want the LLM to be able to tell people how to make a bomb, right? But that's just in there with all the rest of the information. And that's a pattern it has extracted. So I don't think Smajj knows at all what he's talking about here.
Which is what you've just described. Using it as a tool to do things like that. Sure, I don't have that much of a problem with it. Obviously, there's the environmental side of it as well, where
that's a fair point. I mean, I think the environmental side of it is fair to talk about, but I would kind of I don't think AI is so much worse than any other industry on this area. It's just that AI is becoming such a huge industry that of course it's going to have huge environmental consequences. But I absolutely agree that the environmental consequences of our industry is important to think about and try to minimize. So that's water usage to some degree, but more so than water usage, electricity and energy usage. Um, I'm basing a lot of that on Hank Green's latest video on AI water use, which is really good.
You know, how much energy and everything like that it uses. And again, I know that your hypothetical in the future would be, well, what if it doesn't use much energy or anything like that in
No,
the
I
future?
didn't
What
say
if it's
that.
great and it's no, I know. I'm saying
Congress,
I can
Congress
imagine
could
you would
Congress
say
could
that.
pass no Congress could pass a bill saying that all the energy that's used for data centers that power AI models have to be renewable, solar, wind, hydroelectric, that kind of a thing. That's just like that's a policy failure in my mind.
So, but here even I can argue against Hutch and say, well, still that energy that you're now producing to clean energy could still be used for something else than AI. We have to presuppose that AI will be good. If you're just building a lot of clean energy to create slop on TikTok and stuff like this, then it doesn't matter how clean that energy is. It's still a lot of wasted energy and wasted effort to make something bad. Right? So, supposing that AI is good, then at least one can argue for and against whether the environmental impact is worth it or not. But if it's bad, then of course any environmental impact from the AI is just bad because you're hurting the environment to create something that's not even good.
Like it doesn't necessarily have to be the case that that these data centers are, you know, like leaving a massive carbon footprint. That's just, in my mind, a policy failure.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be. You're absolutely right, but unfortunately, that is the reality of it. Hence, my current hesitation as well to still not want to use AI. Obviously, you know, I'm not perfect. No one's perfect when it comes to being environmentally friendly. But again, to go back to the point, what you described, they got the Nobel Prize for, is not an LLM. So that's an automation process, which again,
it's not an automation process.
And I want to reiterate, AI can be great at. So.
But also, to be fair to Smajj, it's also not an LLM. It's also not this generative AI thing that we're talking about. So he's kind of right, but I don't know why he keeps calling it an automation process.
The sake of agreeing to disagree, I think that AI as a tool that does what you described, they got the prize for, in terms of automation. Absolutely, that could potentially be a benefit in the future. But in terms of replacing the human factor of like development or therapy or...
And notice again how he's using the word replace. No one wants to replace human connection or therapy or human communication. We're not talking about replacing anything.
Human communication or conversation. I don't...
No, but you're strawmanning me here because I never said to replace it. I never said to use AI to just totally replace human interactions.
Sure.
I was proposing
to supplement it.
No. Well, I mean, I guess you could say it like that, but like I'm talking about, I'm imagining an application where you could have somebody with severe social anxiety, for example, practice interactions, like real world interactions, or things that mirror real world interactions.
Okay, so now we're back to the therapy thing again.
And they do that in a safe setting to help them become more comfortable with it, so they can use that in their real life interactions with people. I'm talking about using the technology to potentially empower clients to have better communication skills with other human beings and thus forge more relationships and have more human connection. That's what I'm talking about.
Sure. But again, we go back to the limitations of AI and what it can and can't do. For it to be able to replicate these kind of conversations, you would need something a lot more sophisticated than an LLM. You'd need something way more advanced than what we currently have. And if we ever have that, and it's...
I think this is an exaggeration of just how much more advanced than what it currently is it would have to be. Let's look at some studies. All right, so again, the purpose of looking at this research is not to prove that AI is just all good and has no drawbacks and there's no flaws with it. It's just to prove that it has potential. It has some already shown some promise. So here we're looking at effect of an AI agent trained on a large language model, LLM, as an intervention for depression and anxiety symptoms in young adults, a 28-day randomized control trial. Just one study. Of course, it's just one study, so can't draw any strong conclusions from this. But at least here we have some evidence that the dialogue intervention significantly reduced depression in the intervention group at 2 weeks and significantly reduced both depression and anxiety in their intervention group at 4 weeks. So these are conversational agents. They were asked to engage in a total of 28 days of dialogue intervention with the AI agent and complete 3 psychological questionnaires. So, conclusion, this study found evidence that the LLM-based conversational agent could effectively alleviate the mild anxiety and depressive symptoms of young adults with negative emotions through dialogue interventions when the AI companion bot is used sufficiently enough. All right, just one study. It's just one study. Here's another one. Using artificial intelligence to improve empathetic statements in autistic adolescents and adults, a randomized clinical trial. Now, someone was pushing back that, oh, but this is for autistic people, so you can't really generalize from this to the general population. Okay, fine. But let's just stipulate that the person we're talking about in the thought experiment is autistic then, right? Like, imagine you have an autistic person who wants to go on a date and they need to practice their social communication, their empathetic responses. Then apparently an LLM seems to be potentially useful. So I was actually looking at this study and there was a nice screenshot here. So this is how it looks. So it asks, my partner surprised me with a romantic weekend getaway. When I say this, do I sound positive, neutral, or negative? The user responds positive. That's right. How would you reply to me? That's awesome to hear. Did you enjoy it? Good reply. You're engaged in the conversation by showing enthusiasm. All right, so obviously this is for autistic people. This is like very kind of basic stuff for social communication. But yeah, seems to be able to work in this case. We don't need to read the whole abstract. Basically, these findings suggest that AI using LLMs can be used to improve empathetic responses, thereby providing time and cost-efficient support program for improving social conversations in autistic adolescents and adults. And lastly, just a review paper that found 726 articles, of which 16 met the inclusion criteria. So this is based on 16 articles. And their main conclusion is current evidence does not fully support their use. So their being GPT models. As standalone interventions, more rigorous development and evaluation guidelines are needed for safe, effective clinical integration. So yeah, it shows initial promises, but more research is needed, basically. So I think we at least have a good reason to not completely dismiss this idea as completely ridiculous and stupid.
It's environmentally friendly, and it can, again, I want to use the word supplement because that's kind of what you said when he goes home and he practices and uses it as homework, for example. Sure. But with what we've currently got, what we know the limitations of the technology currently are, and how LLMs work and how AI works, I really don't think that's ever gonna be the case. And
it's already seeming to be the case to some degree. So he seems to just be wrong here.
You're wishfully saying now that I get that you haven't explicitly said we should use AI, but you do rely on it a lot, and I can understand why, because it gives you snappy information quickly. But it kind of feels like that you're pushing for it now because it could be better in the future. No, would that be completely unfair to say?
No, I'm pushing back against the idea.
He's already using it now because it's useful for him now. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted.
No, would that be completely unfair to say?
No, I'm pushing back against the idea that that it seems like a lot of people in my chat have, that there's just that the technology has there's no applications today that are valuable or worthwhile. There seems to be this pervasive thought that AI has no use. Like it's all just they kind of just like they kind of boil it down to shitty AI slap videos on social media, and that's kind of all they think AI is. And they don't think that these language models are very good. Like they don't have very many practical uses. But for example, like I was having to try, you know me, I'm not great with computer stuff. I'm learning, but I'm not great with computer stuff. And I had a situation where Windows wanted to update, but it kept on giving me an error saying that a driver from a software that I already uninstalled like last year, there was still a driver that was preventing me from getting this new update from Windows. Before, maybe I would have had to like go on TaskRabbit, and had to like paid somebody to come, or maybe I can call like John. My buddy John's pretty good with computers, but he's not always available. And it would have been a whole thing. And instead of that, I was just like, hey, I'm getting this error. What do you think is going on? And ChatGPT was like, well, let's try to figure out where it's coming from. Go to command and type this and And it took me 5 minutes to fix that problem. That is like such a clear use case that is just insanely beneficial. That's like a really good use of that technology, and it helped me
So everyone in chat is saying Google, and that's what Smajj is also going to say.
out immediately, and I fixed the problem right away.
Sure. But would you have found the same? Did you Google it first before going to ChatGPT? I want you to be honest. Did you Google that error before going to ChatGPT?
No. Do you know why I didn't?
Right. But this is my point.
But hold on. But tell me why. But tell me why I didn't Google it. Tell me why I didn't Google it.
You tell me.
Because this was faster. It gave me the answer right away.
It would be faster.
In Google, I would have had to have gone on like message forums and like Reddit threads and tried 5 different things. So it just like laziness. Boom, there it is.
That is this is the cringiest moment. Laziness. That is laziness. I mean, that is so stupid. And by the way, I think he said there that, so you're using something that could be wrong. You don't think you can find the wrong answer on Google? You don't think it's possible for someone to go on Google and try something when they don't know what the hell they're doing, like Hutch is, and try some potential solution that he finds, and then fuck something up on his computer because it wasn't actually a good solution for him? Of course that's also possible. And how is this lazy? It's just efficient, as he says.
Are you lazy for taking? Are you lazy for taking the subway to get to work because it takes longer to walk? Does that mean you're lazy?
What?
What do you mean? What you're saying?
Using. He has no answer for that. You can of course say yes, like some people in chat are going to say yes, that is lazy. Okay, sure. It's also lazy to not go to the library to look this stuff up and instead use Google. Like, we just use the technology that we have available, obviously. This is such a stupid point.
Something
that's the point of technology. The point of technology is to make your life more convenient and to free up your time to do other stuff. That's why we drive cars. That's why we have a microwave.
That is being lazy. That is the definition of being lazy. You were saying because it's more convenient
because
and easier for you.
I used technology efficiently to fix a problem in the quickest amount of time. That means you're lazy.
Actually, it's also lazy to Google because instead you should do an education in computer science or actually you should read the documentation for Windows and every program you're using directly, and you shouldn't just Google the exact problem you're having right now. You should go to the primary sources for all of this stuff and read the whole documentation. Otherwise, you're lazy. I mean, this logic it's nonsensical. It isn't logic. It's illogical. It's just it's something he's grasping for in order to criticize AI for something. Just to have something to criticize Hutch for in terms of using AI, like to be able to criticize Hutch for using AI. It doesn't make any sense.
That is just efficient.
You're using technology that you've just admitted yourself has bad environmental impact and gets shit wrong. Of course, humans get shit wrong as well. Okay, I want to put that out there.
Yeah, cars also have bad environmental impact, and is it lazy to use it to get to work? You can say yes. You can say, yeah, it's lazy to not walk to work every day. But it's also just more time efficient. Like this definition of laziness, as if there's something noble, as Hutch is going to say later, about searching through a bunch of forums on Google for information you don't actually need, when in order to find the one thing you do need, instead of just asking ChatGPT for exactly what you need.
Humans get shit wrong all of the time. But generally, when you Google something, because of the way SEO works and the way search engines work and everything like that, sure, I get it. That's kind of AI as well. And I get that's probably going to be your point. Humans get shit wrong, but humans as a conglomerate on these sorts of forums that you're talking about, they pluck the best answers and they will upvote the best answers.
Why would I choose that option if it might take 3, 4, 5 times longer to fix the problem? What is the nobility of that?
Because you've proven yourself that AI gets shit wrong all of the fucking time.
But I just told you this problem got fixed in fucking 5 minutes, and I'm typing code that I have no fucking idea what I'm typing. Would you have even mentioned it if it got it wrong? Would you have even mentioned it if it got it wrong? Yes.
And here Esme comes in, but he's making such a dumb point because he, as Hutch is going to say, he's asking you like, oh, you wouldn't even say it if he got it wrong. And Hutch literally, even Smajj just brought it up earlier in the conversation. Hutch is not embarrassed to admit that these AI models get things wrong. He announced it unprompted by his audience on his own Discord, and he supplemented Smajj's example of LLMs having people having bad outcomes, like the meth addict who relapsed and the person who killed themselves. Like Hutch brought up the example of someone killing themselves. He's not embarrassed to admit that these models get anything wrong, because that's not the point. The point isn't that they're perfect and don't get things wrong.
Yeah, but now I remember. Yep. Would I have told you just said like would I have told you if it didn't help me fix the problem? But you also just referenced the fact that I posted on Discord yesterday a screen cap of ChatGPT getting something hilariously wrong. So why are you insisting like, oh, you never would have told us? Like, why do you think I have some kind of agenda here? I don't give a fuck. I'm not invested in ChatGPT in that way that I would like lie about it not helping me. Why would I do that?
You told us because you found it funny and because people have been talking. Literally, someone in chat just said the same thing. Because you found it funny. You didn't do it because it failed you. You found it funny because we had been pushing back. If we had never been pushing back on you on this, and AI failed you yesterday when you were trying to update your computer, like, I'm going to be completely honest with you, again, as someone who uses it at work and is kind of forced to use it at work, and it gets shit hilariously wrong.
Has it ever helped you at work? Has it ever helped you?
It can get things hilariously wrong. It can also get things incredibly correct, like Hutch just made an example of, and now Hutch wants to move on from this example.
At work?
In what capacity?
Don't
because
lie.
My job is again. I don't want to dox
in any
myself,
capacity.
really.
In any capacity, has it ever helped you?
Sure.
Oh, so it has some use. So it has some value, even today.
It can give you good boilerplate code, which you can find elsewhere.
Has it?
Yeah, but if you can find it elsewhere, why are you saying it has helped you? Why are you using it to what?
Ever sped up? Has it ever sped up your process of fixing problems? Just generally.
In terms of like technology at work, it's something that I could have figured out myself. It might have done it faster.
Whatever task you have in front of you, has it ever sped up your process of fixing that problem, whatever problem you have?
Sure. Okay, I'll give you this example. I'll bet it
has a lot. I'll bet it's helped you a lot.
I'm just about to half agree with you.
Not just once or twice. I'll bet you it regularly helps you speed up the problem solving stuff.
No, because I'm about to give you a perfect example of why not. If I'm developing a front end app,
I agree with these guys, by the way. Like, as a software engineer, LLMs are awesome, and you either use them or are against them for whatever reasons and don't use them. This guy isn't using AI correctly. Yep.
Application, let's say, correct, that someone can log into, right? If I go to ChatGPT now and I ask it to develop a front-end system with logins and encryption and passwords being encrypted and everything like that, or Claude, for example, because that's the best, kind of the best code-based thing that people use, When I have asked it to do this on multiple different versions of like ChatGPT, 4.5 is pretty good at coding. I will give it that. 5 is awful at coding. Claude is kind of at coding. If I asked it to do that, it would more than likely put the entire API and people's passwords and everything like that in the front end. If I developed it myself properly, Hutch, I could stop that from happening at the start.
But I'm not.
Okay, that is an incredibly bad argument. Like these guys are saying, that's not complementary. That's you asking the GPT to do your entire job. Right? No one is saying it can totally 100% replace a software engineer at this point, or maybe even ever. I don't know if it can ever really do that. The point is it's useful as a tool. It can write a ton of code for you. It can do a lot of the grunt work for you, and you can sit there and orchestrate it, and you can sit there and make the higher level decisions. He's basically saying, oh, because it will fuck up if I just give it my entire project from start to finish and let it do everything for me, and I don't intervene at all. Yeah, no shit. No one is saying that you have to do. Why does it have to be all or nothing? This is completely. I don't know. It is not a good argument.
I've never argued that it can do everything perfectly.
Yeah, like this guy says, that would be a whole dev. That'd be a whole developer.
I've never argued that. You're
telling me that I'm telling you it can't now.
No, but you're telling me there's limitations to what AI can do, and I'm like, well, yeah, of course.
Yeah, exactly. Of course there are limitations to it, but you can still use it within its limited capacity.
I'm specifically pushing back against the idea that, in principle, I should.
Yeah, then why are you asking it to do that? You know it can't do that. Why would you ask it to do that when you know it can't do that? Just to have a point about something it can't do? Okay, yeah, if I tell the AI, hey, get me to the moon, it can't do that either. So what?
Use like I should browse forums for solutions to driver problems, even though that is going to take longer than using.
Exactly. Because it can't do a complex task perfectly, never use AI. Smajj's hate boner for AI is cooking him. Yeah, like
ChatGPT because otherwise I'm lazy. And I'm like, are you lazy for using a microwave instead of, gathering firewood and starting a fire and warming your food that way? The point of technology is to speed up the process of doing things. That's what technology exists to do.
Would you say microwave meals are better for you than cooking fresh?
It depends. Sometimes there's nothing wrong with microwave. You can microwave an egg, and it's like that's gonna.
Exactly. This is the point, right? It's how you use the technology, right? If you cook fresh, right, but you make, I don't know, lasagna or a burger you bake brownies. You bake brownies, but you do it from scratch, right? And you eat that. Is that better for you than microwaving a like kind of halfway healthy dinner, like with vegetables and meat and right balance of all the nutrients? Like, what's better? Is one worse just because it was in the microwave? No. The technology is useful, right? If you use it correctly.
Come out the same as though you boiled it for like 8 minutes or something like that. I would prefer to cook a meal with fresh ingredients than buy like a pre-made dinner, if that's what you mean. But that's not exactly the kind of conversation that we're having with like AI. That's not a proper analogy in my mind.
Okay. That's where we agree to disagree. Again, this boils down to you're saying, okay, it might one day be good and it might one day be able to do all of this and it might one day to be able to do all of that. I'm telling you, that's not how an LLM works. That's beyond the technology that we currently have. I mean,
no, it's not. He just doesn't know. He literally just doesn't know the capabilities of this technology because he has some ideological opposition to it and is refusing to actually test it out properly. He doesn't know how powerful these tools can be, especially for coding.
I want to bring up a good example that someone brought up to chat. I want to say it was Acriel that brought up in chat with like game development, like Arc Raiders. Let's use Arc Raiders as an example. Okay, so the AI voice lines that the characters do when they say "Hey" over there, for example, are AI generated. And an example Acriel gave was, what if you had a game where anytime you spoke to an NPC, the voice lines were AI generated, right? Are you kind of following me so far with why he thinks that'd be a good thing with ChatGPT?
We're headed there. That's where things are headed, to be clear.
Right. Why would I rather play that than a story that has been crafted by someone?
It's personal. It's personal preference. It's just personal preference. Some people might find the idea of going into like imagine a GTA 6 style world, but every NPC that's walking around in the universe is capable of having like an on the fly conversation. I mean, some people would think that that would be like, whoa, that seems kind of cool. And then, but
Yeah, this is one of the first things I thought about like many years ago with AI that would be so cool if I thought about Skyrim, but it's the same concept. Like a lot of the NPCs in Skyrim don't really talk to you at all. It would be cool if the developers could just give like a very short description, maybe a little bit of a backstory or something to each character, and then each character kind of can respond through an LLM uh, as if they were a natural part of that environment. And maybe you could like based on conversations you've had with other NPCs, you could save that in a file, and then the responses kind of keep adjusting to what you've been saying to the characters and what you've been doing in the world. And yeah, I think it's can be really really cool for role-playing games. Now, what Smajj is saying, it sounds like, is like, what if you had an AI game that was made entirely by AI and there was no real human creativity in it at all, and it was shit? Why would I play that instead of a really good game made by humans? And it's like, yeah, why the fuck would you play a game that's shit over a game that's good in general? But what if you had a game that implemented AI in a good way and it was good? Wouldn't that be cool, or would it be bad just because it's using AI?
but then there's also I also understand the value and the appeal of having a world that is entirely handcrafted by artists and writers and that kind of a thing. It's just a different kind of experience.
Sure. And I guess you could kind of make the argument that it's not necessarily taking away jobs at that point, but I guess that could be seen as lazy at that point, I guess, because VAs aren't working as much, so they may not charge as much, or they may not be as valued as much, so VAs may not get as much. Writers may get paid less because these game development executives or game company executives, which I don't think you disagree with me on, would say, well, fuck it, let's just use AI because it's way cheaper and it's going to be way better for us.
Well,
again, it's taking away the human element.
Well, this is just we're just talking about like the market realities here. And the reality with AAA gaming is that the cost of making these games has bloated enormously to the point where it hasn't been sustainable in a really long time. It's been going in a really bad direction in that sense. And these companies are going to use these tools to speed up the process. It's just going to happen. And then at that point, the market's going to determine, like, if there's enough people that want, games that are 100% from human artists, then there will be a market for those kinds of games. And
this is where my mind goes as well. The market will decide if people are fine with AI generated stuff, then AI generated stuff will be all around the place. And if people don't buy that stuff and vote with their wallets and don't like it, then it's not going to be around. I have a good guess on which of those is going to happen, but everyone is free to not buy games that have AI have too much AI, however you define that in them. And I think about that in general with the replacement of jobs and stuff like this. Like, yeah, if the AI can take over human labor in different ways, then that's generally good because we free up human time that we can use that time that was freed up to do something else. And when it comes to like artists and stuff, I just think, especially thinking about current models that we have today, if you are an artist that is being replaced by current AI, I'm sorry, but what kind of artist are you? Like, are you a good artist if AI can do your job for you at this point? What kind of generic ass art are you making? That's harsh, but I just don't see why we are obligated to keep artists like that around who can be replaced by AI. I think really good artists will not be able to be replaced by AI anytime soon. Because I agree with the comment, the idea that, or the fact that AI doesn't really make truly original stuff. It can kind of put things together in a unique way based on the prompt. Different stuff it's seen. It can put it together like it's seen a chessboard and it's seen a cat, so it can probably make a cat with a pattern, with a fur, the pattern of a chessboard, for example, even though it's never seen particularly that picture of a cat with a fur of a chessboard. Um, but it can't make truly original stuff. It can't truly have like original comments on society and this kind of stuff that artists do. So I think real artists, good artists, they won't have any problem. And yeah, maybe artists have to up their game a little bit because you can't just make generic, boring art anymore because AI has taken that job. But eh, eh, whatever. That's fine, I think.
Those consumers will have access to those games, and that'll be that. But this is just unquestionably this is just unquestionably the direction that we're going. Hideo Kojima came out with a statement like 3 weeks ago, and he was talking about how AI wouldn't replace game developers in his company. It would just enable them to do more things in less time. And so, just if you're that much of a purist, then I'm sure there's going to be games out there that don't use any AI, and you can buy those games. But this is just unquestionably where the landscape is headed. This is like, every time there's been some new technology that massively disrupted industry, there's always conversations about worker displacement and, how do what can we do to protect these people? Like the car came around and all of a sudden, horse carriage drivers or whatever they were called, that was an existential crisis for them, right? But would them having an existential crisis in terms of their career path, would that have been a justification to not develop cars? Like, would you say that the world is better because cars exist? I think you can make a pretty easy case to suggest that, yeah, cars did improve human beings' life and their quality of life.
Listen, I might just be being overly negative here and overly pessimistic, or maybe I've just been brain rotted from seeing what bad AI can do. I take your point that technology does eventually have to advance and vice versa. However, my entire argument would be, I don't think it should ever replace the human element. And I think I've kind of stated that from the start. And I don't think it should even supplement the human element. And
okay, the replace thing is fine because Hutch isn't arguing that. And now he's saying also it shouldn't even supplement the human element. I don't know what supplementing the human element really means, but it shouldn't even supplement the therapy, for example. Why? He hasn't made a case for that. He has not at all made a case for that.
I get that you disagree with that. I fine.
You haven't really articulated a coherent reason for this. Like, you've told me that AI currently has limitations, but when I ask you why, in principle, should I choose like a Google search if it takes five minutes longer, you just say it's because I'm lazy. That's not really an argument.
That was in terms of technology and creating things. In terms of a human connection, do you disagree that talking person to person is better than talking to an LLM that is just going to read what it's some random person might have found on the forum and go, yeah, I'll just repeat that back to the person? Do you not think that talking to another human being with actual lived in experiences and actual emotions and vice versa should be the best person for
that?
He
keeps saying vice versa. I don't think he knows what that means. Actually, like, what?
Another human being with actual lived in experiences and actual emotions and vice versa should...
And vice versa? Does he mean etc.?
Be the best person for that? You yourself said we have exposure therapy. That works. So why do we need to even entertain this idea?
Well, I don't know how things are in the UK, but in the United States, in terms of mental health services, they've gotten a lot better in the 21st century, but they're really lacking. Like you can find yourself, if you don't have great insurance or any insurance, it's very difficult to find consistent mental health support services that can serve a client when they're in a time of crisis. Like I've had experiences in the United States where I was in a state of legit crisis, like in a state of hypomania or extreme depression. And I would call to set up an appointment and be like, okay, great, we'll see you in 3 weeks. And it's like, holy shit. To your question about like human interactions, I think.
So he's saying the AI would be always available, right? And that's another thing, not just cheaply available, but like available in the middle of the night. If it were to work as someone who you could like quote unquote reach out to, like, yeah, you might have great friends. Do you have such great friends that if you're freaking out every night that they would tolerate you calling them in the middle of the night, night after night after night? They shouldn't have to tolerate that. I mean, this is just something that if it works would be amazing. Why are we so hostile to the idea that it could maybe work?
I think human connections is one of the, having human connections with other human beings is one of the most important things that we can do with our time on Earth. Like I believe that our connections with other human beings is the thing that has enabled the human race to do spectacular and wonderful things all throughout human history and change art and technology. It makes all of that possible. And it's like a beautiful thing to connect with another human being. So like, that's a big part of like the way that I live my life. But again, I'm not talking about replacing human interactions. Like, would you say, for example, that it's bad for a person to have a conversation with themselves, like in the mirror? Like how many times have people had pretend conversations? They look at themselves in the mirror and they practice something. They practice like a presentation, or they practice a conversation they want to have with their wife, or a teenager is practicing how he wants to ask a girl out. Like you're pretending that like, according to you, that's not good because you're not actually interacting with another human being, right?
You're interacting with yourself. Are you now arguing?
But not
that
another
you're
human
not a
being, though.
being
You're not
with
making a connection.
And
No, but you're not.
expectations.
But in that hypothetical, you're not interacting with another human being. So according to you, that's bad. If a person like rehearses a speech they want to give to or a conversation they want to have with their wife, they rehearse that in the mirror. You're saying that that's bad because there's no human connection there.
Is your argument that they should rehearse that with ChatGPT?
I'm arguing that it's possible that the technology could evolve to the point where people can have practice conversations. Yes.
Sure.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's like, to me, it's just a more advanced form of like looking at yourself in the mirror and practicing a conversation.
Brilliant. You can do that now. But if I went to ChatGPT, let's say I went to ChatGPT now and I gave it let's say a text message I want to send to a family member that I haven't spoken to for like 5 years, whatever. And I go to ChatGPT and go, hey, I think I'm going to send this. And I chat.
Yeah, so you can do it now, and now it won't be that good as Hutch might imagine that it could be in the future.
GPT comes back and go, I would tweak this and I would change this and I would actually say this instead. Right? Mm-hmm. What if what it gives me back, and in this example, what it gives me back is worse than what I was actually going to send, and it isn't what that person needed to hear? Because I know that person. I know human beings.
I take your point.
This particular human being.
But what? Okay, so what? So it gave you a bad result, and then it would be bad. What if it gave you a good result? Then it would be good. And what if you asked another friend instead of asking ChatGPT, and they gave you some tips on I would tweak this and I would tweak that, and that was bad? Then does that mean that it's bad to ask your friends for advice sometimes, just because sometimes they get it wrong? No. Know the limitations of the technology. Know when it's good, know when it's bad. Know to evaluate what you're getting in response. Right? Use your human brain to evaluate what ChatGPT is returning to you. Why do you have to? Why does it have to be all or nothing every time? Either you can't use it for coding at all, or you have to be able to delegate your entire project to it. Either you can't use it in video games at all, or you have to, you have to make a whole game using only AI, and compare that to a game that's made by only humans. Right? Either you have to replace therapy with AI, or you can't use it for therapy at all. What? Why?
I take your point. If people become over-reliant on models, where it's already happening now. Like apparently, this is what people in chat told me. It's already happening now. Like a boyfriend will fuck up in a relationship, and instead of reflecting and coming to a place of genuine remorse. They just fucking ask ChatGPT, how do I apologize and make this better? Obviously, that is a situation where the technology.
So once again, Hutch steelmans Smaj's argument. Smaj hasn't made a single argument that says good against, quote unquote, against Hutch's position, because obviously what Hutch is saying isn't actually against his position, but against what Smaj seems to think is Hutch's position. Hutch is giving better counter examples of ChatGPT being having negative influences than Smaj is. So there's just, it's just incredible.
Technology would actually be hurting that person and their ability to have a human interaction. But again, this is like a tool. It just depends on how you use it.
Exactly.
Like, of course, somebody can abuse a tool, and that abuse of that tool would not be a good thing. It would not lead to good outcomes. That doesn't mean that like ChatGPT can't give you valuable feedback about like sentence structure and like maybe you conjugated a verb wrong or something like that. That's not inherently bad, right?
Not necessarily. I don't know how much I can go into it. Let's say I put to you that let's say best way to this, for a content creator, I was making tweets for a content creator and I asked ChatGPT about XYZ person, or I asked about XYZ spelling, and it goes to me, here's the actual spelling, here's what you should do. I post it, and then the content creator gets pissed and says, that's not how it's spelt. And
the content creator did not get pissed, by the way.
It's interesting that Smaj is tweeting from Hutch's account, or what is that what's implied here?
The content creator got pissed. I'm saying the content creator came back and said, hey, that's not how we spell it, and vice versa. From my point of view, ChatGPT's told me the right thing there.
And vice versa.
No, but you're just...
I swear to God, this guy doesn't know what vice versa means.
All you're doing is you're making an argument that the technology is not perfected right now, which nobody is arguing that ChatGPT is like perfect right now.
Nobody's.
I don't know what argument you're making. You're telling me it makes mistakes. Of course, yeah. Of course.
Fine, it makes mistakes, but it's always, how do we know it's not always going to make mistakes?
It probably is always going to make mistakes, but the fact that something makes mistakes, doesn't make it useless. I am a developer. He is apparently a web developer. I guarantee you, he makes mistakes in his job. He probably introduces bugs into the code from time to time. That happens. I do that. Everyone does that. Everyone makes mistakes. That doesn't make you useless. That doesn't make anything useless, right? Like the power goes out once in a while. That doesn't make the electricity useless. And and of course, ChatGPT makes mistakes more than just once in a while right now. It makes a ton of mistakes, right? If you use it a ton, you're going to see a ton of mistakes. I see a ton of mistakes it makes. I use it very much. I see a ton of mistakes, but I learn what it can and can't do. I learn where I can trust it and where I can't trust it. And okay, sure, maybe I'm at risk at being overly dependent on it. I need to watch out for that. That's good to keep in mind. But that doesn't. The solution to that is not to shy away from the technology entirely and lose my mind every time someone mentions that they're using it and finding use cases for it.
I guess we don't, but as
you're being optimistic and I'm being pessimistic. I guess that's what it boils down to.
I think it's fair to assume when we look at the scope of
and Hutch isn't just being optimistic. He is looking at the reality right now and seeing that the models already have applications. Smaj is making it out as if currently the models are completely useless, and Hutch is just hoping that maybe they'll be somewhat useful in the future. No, they're already super useful, and they are probably going to keep improving and be even more useful in the future. That's the claim Hutch is making, I think.
Technological progress in the age of the computer. There's no question that we've just been moving in one fucking direction for the last, better part of a century now. These technologies have a tendency to get way better over time. And I don't think it's unreasonable to assume that the models, as they continue to iterate, are going to make...
I will say, it's not a rule, it's not a law of nature that technology will keep improving forever. I mean, it will hit the plateau at some point. I must assume this particular architecture, I, it seems like the scaling curves are, they're not linear, right? So you increase the compute by 10 times and you might get a doubling in efficiency, but then you do it 10 times again and you only get a doubling. Now you've done 100 times for only 4 times as much performance. Like it's a logarithmic scale in scaling. So eventually when you have to scale it up 10 times again, that would mean all the electricity on all of Earth in order to get more performance, and you just can't scale it up anymore. I don't know. The point is, it will flatten out at some point. I'm sure it will. And it's like the iPhone, right? Or any other technology. Like the jump between the first iPhone to the second iPhone was probably huge. I don't remember. I don't know. But like the first few iPhones and smartphones, they made huge changes and everything got a lot better every year to year. Now, to this year's iPhone and last year's iPhone, or whatever, it doesn't have to be the iPhone, smartphones from Android or fucking Samsung and all these, they're not changing that much from year to year because we've kind of figured out how a phone should be, and we've figured out that we kind of converged towards, smartphones are like this now. Like this is what we expect from a smartphone, and LLMs will reach that point. I don't think we've quite reached that point. We're starting to integrate them into our technology. We're starting to use them more and more. We're starting to understand it, but we still have some people like this who refuse to use it because who don't want to understand it, who don't want to learn about it, who just see all the failure modes and none of the success modes, none of the good things and all of the bad things. And that's just frustrating to listen to. So that's why I'm so obsessed with this discussion, because I find the arguments so poor. I honestly find it fascinating that someone can bring forth such poor arguments and sort of believe their own words. It is dogmatic. It is kind of religious in its nature. It is like listening to someone who's super religious not be able to see how bad their arguments are. It really does feel like that to me.
Make less and less mistakes as time goes on.
Sure.
And you seem to be of the mind that there's like a hard cap on how far the technology can go. And you're just like incredulous at the idea. Sorry, what?
I think in our lifetime, there's sure, maybe in like a few lifetimes it will get better. Obviously, the whole idea of like what humans will look like in the future is that we will eventually will be like one mind and one robotic mind and one AI.
Yeah, like transhumanism.
Yeah, transhumanism. I guess that's kind of the idea. My hesitation is that people seem to want to move it too fast, too quickly, and we're already thinking now of what if it's amazing here and what if it's amazing there? Sure, what if, but it currently isn't. And again, I appreciate that I'm coming from a pessimistic viewpoint. I think that it's not great at human stuff, but I'm not disagreeing with you that it's not great at automation. And like you said, those guys won a prize for the automation process.
And it's not an automation process. I don't know why I keep saying that.
That AI did.
It's not good at automation? Is that what you just said?
No, I'm saying it is good. I said it is good for automation.
Okay.
Yeah, I said it's great for automation. Let me clarify. It's great for automation, and it's great when you give it a direct input of, hey, do this thing over and over and over again for me. Some of what, I'm not going to lie, some of what ChatGPT can do is scary. Like they've got an agent mode and you can go, hey, go on this website and make an account, and it can do captures already, and it can create things and do things on websites and post on Reddit via captures. It can already do that.
Okay, so you understand that it can do that, but you still see no use case, even though it has these impressive abilities, that it can do all these things as if it is an agent, in agent mode? Seriously?
But you can always tell, I think you'll always probably be able to tell, because it can't mimic the human connection, and that's where my line is. My line is where you're saying supplement it for,
It can simulate. I can.
So now he's moving around. Like now he's saying, "Well, that's my line, is the human connection thing." But he's been saying like he sees no value in these models, and they're bad for coding as well. And it can't code because it can't do my whole job for me and all that stuff. So he's not being very consistent here.
theorize a future where, and maybe you're right, there are just these inherent limitations to these models, and if you're right about that, then I'm wrong, and I'm not really attached to being right about it. But I can theorize a potential future where the models become so reliable and it passes strict, because like associations like the APA, they're never going to implement stuff like AI tools unless it's rigorously tested, first of all. So like everything that I'm presenting to you as a hypothetical thing that could be used in the future, the assumption there is it will have passed some kind of regulatory standards that are imposed. And I can theorize a future where a therapist, for example, can input into a model like, okay, this is my client, this is a little bit of their backstory, these are the symptoms they're exhibiting, this is a kind of area that I think that they could improve the most when it comes to their communication. They seem to be really struggling with this. And then it can just spit out a kind of a model of a person where that person can simulate that conversation in a safe environment. That to me is not dystopian. Like if you're making the argument that technology is never going to be possible, then I don't know. Maybe you're right about that. You seem to know more about technology than I do. And if
yeah, well, I'm not going to comment on that actually, but yeah, he's not making the case. He's not really making any argument for why the technology will not keep improving either. He's just saying that it's shit now, and there's no reason to think it's not going to be shit in the future as well. He's wrong about both of those, and he's not presenting any arguments for his claims. He's basically just saying AI bad over and over again.
If you're right, you're right. But you're saying that that's like dystopian, inherently dystopian, because it's replacing human interaction. But that's not the point of what the technology would be used for in that instance. The point would just be to help that person get through a sort of blockage internally when it comes to certain kind of communication types. Like we talked about, sure, potentially using it to like help incels, not be so terrified of women. And like that to me is not such a crazy idea, and that's not dystopian at all, because then they would go on to use those skills theoretically to actually interact with more women.
Sure, this is a lot of what ifs, but at that point, I saw someone else bring it up in chat, and I'd like to put that to you. At that point, why do we even need people? Like at that point, what's the point of having?
Okay, I'm gonna let him finish, I guess.
Human communication at all at that point.
Okay, so Hutch has said, imagine an AI enables an incel to not be afraid of women so they can go talk to women and get that human connection. And Smajj's question is, well, why do we need humans at all at that point? Well, to have the women to talk to and other people to talk to. So, which is what the AI is enabling. I don't understand this question.
If it's that good and it can do those things, what would be the point of having the human communication? Unless you admit that human communication is completely important and we really need it. At that point, it's, well, why not just do that then? Why even bother with the AI? Why not just have the AI supplementation? Why not pay?
That's a whole other. But that's a.
What is he saying? Why have the AI? Okay, I don't follow this argument. Why have the AI supplementation? Why not just use humans instead? Why shouldn't an incel just use humans instead to learn to not be afraid of women instead of the AI? Well, because the incel is afraid of talking to other people, because I don't know. I honestly don't know what he's even talking about here. So I'm just responding to what I think he said, which is, why use the AI? Why use the AI at all if you need the human aspect? And if you don't need the human aspect, why not just use AI all the time? But that's not the point. I don't understand. I need to listen to it again.
You need it, human communication, unless you admit that human communication is completely important and we really need it. At that point, it's, well, why not just do that then? Why?
If human connection is important and we really need it, why not just do that then? That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make an AI help someone to get human connection.
Why even bother with the AI? Why not just have the AI supplementation? Why not pay?
That's a whole other. But that's a whole other can of worms. And I already told you that I agree that human connections are one of the most, like, fostering, forging, and nurturing human connections is one of the most important things that everybody should do with their time on Earth as a human being. I already agree with you on that.
Sure. So do you not think that the incel or the shut-in might then rely on the AI too much, or might become attached to the AI? Or
yeah, but this
again,
is
we're
like,
talking about someone who's antisocial and can't do these things. Do you
Yeah, but
not
again-
think that it could go the other way?
yeah, but again, this is like, you know, alcohol has the potential for abuse. Should we ban alcohol?
I mean, you don't want my opinion on that one, but
You would ban alcohol?
It's a
So Smajj should just give the point here. His take on alcohol isn't interesting. The point is, things can have good and bad effects. Should we ban everything just because they have bad effects? No, that's the point.
drug that causes more damage than things like weed or anything else, but I'm not gonna
Would you
sit
ban
here and
would you
judge
ban
anyone that
all
drinks it.
drugs? Would you ban like all drugs that can potentially be abused?
I mean, the world would be better if alcohol wasn't around. Hutch, do you disagree?
I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that. Are we talking about like longevity of life?
Speaking of being able to open up to other humans, alcohol is one of the things that lets people who are otherwise very shy and stuff open up more and party and have fun, and you know, you lose your inhibitions. And of course, it can also be bad, and people get into fights, and people do stupid stuff, and so yeah, it can be good and bad, which is Hutch's point.
Then yeah, like I'm sure the average life expectancy would go up, but you know, a lot of people enjoy alcohol without abusing it, and it can make their experiences better. Like I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't like I can't drink alcohol like a normal human being. If I drink alcohol, I abuse it, and so I choose not to drink alcohol anymore. But that doesn't mean that other people don't enjoy alcohol in a pretty safe setting and they don't abuse it. Like I wouldn't want to ban it because yeah.
I guess, yeah. I'm kind of getting personal where I've dealt with that kind of abuse and everything before. So I guess I'm kind of speaking from a perspective of I would rather it just not exist or anything like that, I guess. But from my point of view, you know, the world in general would be better off without it, and better off without sort of drugs like meth and things like that. Of course, you can try and ban it, and it doesn't work. And studies actually show that if you allow these things in society, then the risk of abuse is lower. Like in the UK, we started like needle systems where you can go and get clean needles anywhere you want and things like that. I don't know if you have that in the US, but and that lowered drug-related deaths and drug-related infections. But I guess at that point, my perspective does boil down to, I guess if I think something's going to harm humanity as a whole, I think maybe it just shouldn't be around, even if it can provide positives in some instances, like you explained. And I guess that's what AI for me boils down to. Sure, it can do some good things, but I see them.
Okay, so now he's once again admitting, sure, it can do some good things. Okay, that's great. He's going back and forth on this a lot.
Negatives outweighing the positives.
So he doesn't see. Wait.
Some good things, but I see the negatives outweighing the positives.
So he sees the negatives outweighing the positives. That's a different discussion. We can, and that is a discussion that is very possible to have. But it's not going to be a very interesting discussion if you're having it with someone who will barely admit that AI has, or generative AI has any use cases currently at all, which is what he has been basically arguing.
That's just me.
Maybe you're right currently, but I'm skeptical of that now. Like maybe you're right, but these systems will improve, and there's a reason why so many people are already adopting this technology in their daily lives, because it frees their time up to do other stuff. They're spending less time working on problems, which is the point of technology. And
So I don't know how I would measure whether it's on balance good or bad right now. I would think it's maybe good, but that's not really the discussion that they've been having. That's not the discussion that has been going on here until now. So we can have that discussion. It would be hard to measure that, and the technology is going to happen anyway. So I think what we should do is focus on mitigating the negatives and and optimizing for the positives and seeing the use cases of it and yeah, not pretend like we're gonna put this genie back in the bottle because that's not gonna happen.
We're getting into like philosophical grounds here. I mean, if like, should we ban technologies that have the potential to do any harm? Like, I don't think that's a very strong. I don't think there's a very strong argument for that. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe you guys we can find an island somewhere, and you guys can live on the island without any technology, and that's just going to be how you're going to live your life. But I'm going to try to pull some other people in here before I go.
Sure, fair play, man. No worries. Thanks for the conversation. Appreciate you.
Cheers. I enjoyed it.
Hutch.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so that was that, and now comes me and Mira and some other guy who left after a while, and then I was accused of 2v1ing, or me and Hutch were accused of 2v1ing, but I come 2v1 me. I don't care.